Okay, come on. There we go. Okay. Hopefully you're looking at a slide that says the DAT supervisor.
We are.
Okay, good. Yeah, this is I guess, the fourth module discussing supervisors, and what Andrea and I were going to talk about. Now I'm talking about is the DAT supervisor, and I kind of analogize it as the gateway to leadership. You know, kind of that gateway drug, the thing that's going to lead you in. Um, it's an easy way into leadership because, as you'll see, it really is more about knowing your subject as opposed to all the nitty gritty of setting up shifts, et cetera, et cetera. As a matter of fact, supervising the disaster workforce is not one of the required trainings for DAT supervisor. So I've always found it helpful to go back to the manual and see exactly what does the manual require. And these are some of the things that I got out of the disaster action team standards and procedures. Um, and I'm not going to read them off because you can read them as well as I can, but you know, oversees the team, ensures the coordination, solid understanding of concept of operations. Uh, One thing that they have in the standards and procedures that I would take issue with, they say provides mentoring to DAT service associates and DAT trainees. Um, the only reason DAT specialist is not in there is that the standards and procedures predate that. But I would suggest rather that they coach, in that the association between the supervisor and the service associate or the specialist is going to be on an event basis. So it's not going to be an ongoing mentoring as much as it's going to be coaching. Um, the responsibilities focus primarily on services. You have to have an active RC care account. The standards and procedures require that there be a supervisor on each response. The supervisor is required to have CAC cards. Um, Prior to deploying, it's either the duty officer or the supervisor that's got to make sure that the client's present, uh, is the on-scene person that meets with the incident commander. If there are triggers for escalating the response, it's the DAT supervisor that runs that up the flagpole. The DAT supervisor is the one that ensures livability, should be the last worker off the scene. Ideally, we all leave together, but if not, should be the last one off, and making sure that all the Red Cross people are removed from the scene, and is the one that does any necessary reporting. So we looked at all this that really comes out of the manual, and we said, okay, if we had to break that down into a couple groups, what will we do? And we know that the supervisor is the team leader, really. So what's that mean? Well, first off, a DAT supervisor is looked at as being a subject matter expert. Okay. And one of the first big things is to escalate or not escalate. The DAT supervisor is the one that's going to get on the scene and make that initial assessment, that is this a bread box? Is this bigger than a bread box? And they're the ones who are going to contact leadership to determine if we're going to issue immediate assistance or we're going to open a shelter. And if it's a shelter, how are we going to go about accumulating the names? And I can't overemphasize this enough, because it really is that is one of the few places where you're going to have this watershed event. If you're a shelter supervisor, you're going to have events that come up during your shift, but you're not going to have to really take that proverbial fork in the road. And it really is something where for the DAT supervisor, it's a left brain versus right brain kind of thing. On the one hand, in the right brain, you've got the caring feeling. You've got I can interview people, I can bring that calm, comfort, concern, and gee whiz, I'm going to issue them some immediate assistance, going to make their day better. And then you've got to make that switch to the other side of the brain that says, okay, um, if all these people are on a transportation authority bus that's there as a temporary shelter, we're not going to be helping them right away. We're going to be able to give them blankets, snacks, water, make them feel a little more comfortable. But if they heard that they're going to go to a hotel or something like that, we've got to manage expectations. We're going to be there a lot longer with the people, and we're not going to start immediately helping them as much as assessing the situation. And it's really a different mindset that the DAT supervisor goes into. So we've got that escalate or not escalate. The supervisor is the most knowledgeable person there. They have dealt with RC care before as a service associate. They have now they're now well versed in it. They're going to be the ones that are versed in the nuances between an electronic funds transfer or a cash assistance card, which is better for the client, and explaining it to the client. They're going to be the one that's going to have that DOT hotline in their phone contacts. They better. Same with the IT help desk in the contacts. They're going to be that leading interface with the clients, that comfort, concern, calm. They're going to be the first one that's going to identify the client, bring them over to the vehicle or the place where they can be interviewed. And they're the one that's also going to have the language line in their contacts with the division code in the notes for that contact in case they need it. And they're the ones that are going to be with the support services. What is it that health services can do that can help a client? What are the limitations of health service? We don't have that Red Cross pharmacy. We can help you replacing your medications. But there are some things that, we're not going to have a nurse coming out to meet with you, but somebody will talk to you. And then when do we refer to mental health and spiritual care? Um, Everybody's going to feel bad. Everybody's going to be a bit depressed at the scene. If they weren't having watched their home go up in flames, they'd be strange. But at what point do we say, hey, this is really something that could use mental health, and I really need to talk to the client about that? And is conversant with the fact that mental health is going to have problems with minors under 14 and what you talk to the client about in those cases. Then we have the DAT supervisor as the communicator. This is going to be the DAT supervisor is going to be the primary point of contact for the team, for the DPX on call up the chain, um, for the service associate and the specialist down the chain. So up the chain, down the chain. You, the DAT supervisor, you're the communicator. You're the external facing person on the team. You're going to deal with the incident commander. You're going to be that initial contact with the primary client. If media is there, what do we tell people in that response fundamentals? Contact your supervisor. Okay. And supervisor, you're the one that's going to boil this report down so that you can give the DPAT report to the duty officer at the end. You're the problem solver. One of the first problems you're going to solve is, where am I going to meet up? Where are we going to meet? Are we going to meet at the chapter? Are we going to meet at Denny's? Are we going to meet at the scene? Um, how do we overcome language barriers? SA, if you look at that response fundamentals, we don't really teach them how to overcome language barriers. You, the supervisor, are going to be the person that are going to be looked to for the answer. How do we overcome language barriers? How do we escalate? If this is bigger than the bread box, how do we get this up the chain? Uh, Children influencing the interview. What can you do? You know, the child running around, the needy child. How can we handle children where they're influencing the interview? You're the one that is probably going to have to supply some answers as to how do we deal with the challenged client or the challenging client. Sometimes they may be the same client. What do we do with the pets? How do you approach survivors of a fatality? We've all been on those. Most of us have been on those. It's not easy. And it's not just a fatality of the family, but also a fatality of the pets, which sometimes are equally impactful. We've all had RC care not work. Okay. And the internet's not working, or the thing's dragging, or something's wrong with it. Okay, now what? You're the problem solver on the scene. And what about the client who just can't get past those security questions? Now what do you do? And logistics. Where do we get comfort kits, blankets? What if we need more? Okay, so that's really the three baskets that we see the DAT supervisor falling into. And I'm sorry, this is the third basket. I forgot about that. The supervisor as coach, because you're the one that's coaching the service associate or the specialist through the interview. Yeah, the specialist can't open a case yet, but you want to start getting them ready. Give them the taste for it. Why should they come to the next step and be a service associate? Um, the service associate probably has never entered a case note. And you've got to start getting them ready to enter case notes so that they can do it on their own. If they're opening a case, especially in a multifamily fire, you, the supervisor, don't want to be the one that has to enter all the case notes. So it's coaching is getting that service associate knowledgeable about how to write a case note. Um, Active inquiries that the specialist or the service associate have for you, coaching them through answering those questions. And the thing to remember is you're not out there alone. You, the supervisor, as a DAT, are a bit odd in that if you are on a DRO, you would have a manager, a shelter manager, a feeding manager. You would have, even if you're in, let's say, Gov Ops, you're going to have a Gov Ops manager. There's generally somebody in a quote manager slot that is there for you. In a DAT response, there is no manager that you can immediately go to. But systemically, you've got the system provides you with the people that you need to report to and your phone of friends. The duty officer being a big one, the regional leadership on call, and then everybody's going to have the contact information for your DPX. Even if they're not on call, you know you can probably call them if you've got a major question. And then you've got the technical phone of friends, if you will. That DAT hotline that's out there, which is part of the system, which is put in place so that you're not out there alone. And the IT helpline if things are just going all bogus on you. So really for the DAT supervisor, it's a multifaceted position. It's great because it really looks at you to become the subject matter expert, but you're already well versed in that by virtue of having been a service associate on a number of calls. Uh, you have to step up and have a few more answers, but basically they're looking at you as the person who's been through a number of these rodeos and has some systemic knowledge, some institutional knowledge that you can impart, and you can help bring along that service associate or that specialist and make them more comfortable with their ability to respond. Um, As I said, nothing in here shows you having to fill out evaluations, because the association you have with the specialist or the service associate amounts to hours and not days. So you'll probably never have to fill out an evaluation on somebody based on their DAT response. But that doesn't get you out of coaching them and being the person that they can go to with questions on that response. So with that, basically, are